episode of the Power Ranking Show is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for all of your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for football, basketball, baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and the easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games that are available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use promo code BELIEVE for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.
And that, of course, is the voice of @Marcus_Mosher. This is the Power Rankings Podcast, aka the Power Rankings Show. My mother said I speak too fast on our podcast, so I'm gonna slow it down. She's like, how can you understand what you're saying when you talk that fast? I don't know.
I'm a loser that listens to podcasts at like 1.3 speed, so I can consume as many podcasts as possible. So I appreciate your fast talking.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can't do day 3 tight ends if you don't consume information. Yeah, I love those draft podcasts. I listen to at least 5 a day. Yeah,
or not. Ones in this class if you want to get into it, but we'll save that.
I'm sure. Well, we're going to actually be talking some draft order in a roundabout way. Today, it's our Power Rankings show. I mean, it's our actual Power Rankings episode where we actually rank teams. You know, I did ask you last week for the 3 best moments of planes, trains, and automobiles since it was Thanksgiving, and I expected a quick list. I assume you prepared one off the top of your head.
Yeah, I love it when they're drinking at the hotel, one of my favorites, and they're telling some funny memories about what's happened so far in the trip. I love the diner scene where John Candy's telling Steve Martin about, that's his, best moments of your life when he's missing his kid's Thanksgiving concert. That one always hits really close to home. And then I also the whole beginning scene where we get Kevin Bacon stealing the cab from Steve Martin. It's all great.
Well, so the thing is, we've discussed this before since we just had Thanksgiving, that there's really not any Thanksgiving themed movies. There's one coming out this year or came out this year, but it's not that kind of movie. So we're going to be getting
Rocky 1 is a Thanksgiving movie, right?
I guess, I watched Rocky 2, the other night, and Marcus is so wrong. That's probably the best Rocky movie. Marcus likes music montages that have no dialogue and they're just Rocky climbing mountains, Rocky working out. I actually like some character development. So yeah, makes me smell manly when I see.
Well, hey, there's no easy way out of these power rankings, which we should get to right now.
There's not. And I tell you what, guys, this is, I'll just say this. I don't know if you guys saw Tom Brady's comments and then Aaron Rodgers' comments on top of Tom Brady's comments, and then First Takes comments on top of Tom Brady's comments about the NFL being a very mediocre product right now. And Marcus and I should do a longer podcast on just that because it's really hard to do when we do picks and rankings because we have every team in the league to get to. But that's one of the advantages of this podcast is no matter what team you're a fan of, we do eventually talk about your team. Which was not always the case when I worked in TV. We basically talked about 8 teams the entire time, which is why, by the way, I started doing power rankings for NFL.com in the first place. Did you know that? Because I literally went to our executives. This is back before everyone was doing power rankings. Only Sports Illustrated, Dr. Z was doing them. And he had some health problems. And I went to our executives and I said, guys, Titans fans want to hear about their team. Seahawks fans want to hear about their team. Let's rank the teams in that way. And they thought that was the silliest idea at first. They're like, who's going to read power rankings? I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. Anyway, there you go.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, they ended up getting read. Let's put it that way. They were a little wrong on that deal. Okay. At number 32, the Carolina Panthers. They lost to the Tennessee Titans. Did you happen to see the sweet play Mingo made on the sideline on that Bryce Young throw? Did you see that?
Where it's the opposite of a toe tap. Where basically he jumps out of the way. It's pretty incredible.
Please do yourself a favor. Please. I'm begging all of you out there. When you get home, if you're driving to the office right now, whatever, or if you say that you're working from home and you're actually watching Green Acres, whatever you're doing, go on YouTube and Google Bryce Young Mingo. Or just look for Bryce Young highlights. It's hysterical. The receiver literally does everything he can to not get his feet in bounds on a play. Have you ever seen a play like? I've never seen that ever.
No, it's just incredible awareness by Jonathan.
It was almost incredible athleticism to not make the play.
Yes.
Like, I don't know if you could replicate that on 100 throws.
No.
Get the best receiver in the world and say, I want you to do what he did on this play. They won't be able to do it. 31, I don't think this is too low for the Patriots right now. Marcus, maybe you could swap the Cardinals because the Cardinals are literally the walking wounded. But the Patriots aren't, I mean, they don't have like major health problems. They're just bad right now.
Yeah, they don't have a quarterback. They benched Mac Jones for Bailey Zappi, and it got worse. They missed a 35-yard field goal to try to get the game to go into overtime. Their defense is actually playing well, which is crazy, but this team is awful.
Yeah, the Cardinals were awful against the Rams. I thought they would sneak a win out there, but that was my bad. I didn't tell you guys to bet on that game, but the Cardinals have like no personnel right now. I mean, Marcus, they're rolling out backups all over the place. I'm not talking about like they have no personnel, like they're weak. I mean, literally, they have so many guys that are out right now. They were talking on the broadcast because I watched a lot of it. Believe
Not
it, well, I'm
surprised.
sure yeah. And they kept on the broadcast, about how Robert Smith was the color analyst, former Vikings running back. They showed the 2000 Thanksgiving game against the Cowboys where Robert Smith ran all over Dallas. I thought of you instantly. I bet you cried. I bet you anything you cried.
That was like 9-year-old Marcus.
Yeah, it's like, you're putting third stringers out there, or guys that haven't even played in this position, or, we talk about how they don't practice as much, and the Cardinals just had no answer for the Rams, did whatever they wanted offensively in that game. Tennessee got the win against Carolina. I don't know that Tennessee is particularly impressive right now. If anything, Tennessee is doing something you don't like, which is moving themselves out of favorable draft position.
Although they have a quarterback, though, at least they're developing a quarterback, so I don't
Sure.
hate it as much. To me, it's not that big of a deal.
Okay. Washington Commanders at 28, the Giants are at 27. Maybe the Commanders are better, but I'm honoring the fact that the Giants beat them. I believe that was in Washington a couple of weeks ago. Honestly, and throw the Jets in here too at 26 because the Jets offense is so bad. I think the Jets are better than these teams because of their defense, but these teams aren't going anywhere.
I've got a hot take about the Jets I want to get out really quickly.
Yeah.
Why shouldn't the Jets just completely rebuild next year? I kind of think they're making a mistake just running everything back, thinking that with this team, with a 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers coming off an Achilles injury, they're going to be good. I kind of think it's time for a whole change with the Jets from the front office all the way down to the coach.
Maybe so, but maybe you could also be convinced to try it one more time and then do that. Like, go all in. I mean, Robert Saleh could say, hey, give me one more year. If we don't make it to the AFC Championship game, fire us all.
It's just that there's other teams that are out there winning with bad quarterbacks. And
I agree.
Finding the Jets are getting worse. Like, the Jets have gotten worse the last couple of weeks. You and I were talking like 2-3 weeks ago about how the Jets could potentially try to stay alive before Aaron Rodgers gets back. They've just gotten obliterated in the last few games.
I never hear of a coach saying you got to fire me. I only know of one. Barry Switzer told me in his office, he said, I told Jerry he had to fire me, because the Cowboys were 6-10. Other than that, I don't know of any, I can't think of any example of the coach saying, hey, man, just go ahead and fire me. Boy, I sounded like one of those. Barry Switzer told me.
Yeah. Sources say.
Hey. You skipped over the 25th ranked Bears. You don't want to talk about that sterling win?
Do not.
No. Hey, you got to give their defense some credit. Come on.
Sure. Their defense is playing outstanding.
Marcus informs me that he doesn't think Justin Fields tried to pass more than 4 yards past the line of scrimmage all night. We've got to talk about that when we do a podcast about the NFL globally. This isn't the time or space. The Bears did get a win, and I do recognize that they played very well against Detroit. Their defense did great for 3.5 quarters in that game. However, they've got to prove a little bit more than this for me to really move them up. New Orleans Saints at 24. They don't look good right now. I had to snicker to myself, Derek Carr, us having our first podcast ever, spending all that time on Derek Carr and Dak Prescott, and look how their careers have gone. My gosh. This game, I think their first drive, he had a pick six.
I might have to send that podcast to like cold takes or the freezing cold takes. That was a good one.
I would send it to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It's culturally significant. Cincinnati Bengals at 23. Hard to know what they are with their backup quarterback who just got his first start last week. They lost to Pittsburgh. They were competitive in that game. They couldn't run the ball. I think they had 25 yards rushing in that game, Marcus. And
they had 11 rushes.
I mean, with your backup quarterback, instead of 11 rushes for 25 yards, it should probably be 25 rushes for however many yards.
They just couldn't. I mean, they lost yards on almost every run.
Well, that's problematic as well. Let's talk Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 22. A couple of weeks ago, you thought they were winning the NFC South. Now it doesn't look so hot, but they're not that far behind.
They're a game behind.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Is they're what 4-7? Yeah, 4-6, right? 4-7.
Yeah.
4-7.
They've got a straight up win over New Orleans in New Orleans. I know they have game left with Atlanta. You still think they're the team to do it? What's their schedule? Let's just say real quick. Let's just take a look at Tampa's schedule. Come on, we never spend any time on the NFC South. Let's spend some time on the cruddiest division.
All right, let's go. So they've got 4 wins right now. They play home against the Panthers next week.
When?
At the Falcons.
Probably a loss at this point.
At Green Bay.
Loss.
Home against the Jags on Christmas Eve.
I'll give them a win because the Jags can sleepwalk at times.
All right. Home against the Saints.
Give them a win. I'm being very gracious here.
That's their schedule.
I'll give them another win. Okay, so if they sneak that Jags win, if they sneak it at home on the holiday, what would that make their record?
9-8.
Okay, but they're probably going 8-9. That may be good enough. Hey, man,
probably is.
That probably is. Speaking of the Falcons, they're at 21. They did get an impressive win against the Saints. They've climbed back into this deal at 5-6. They finally used Bijan Robinson. He had the best game of his career. We get to see your email. I like it. Oh, what is this, a cityscape?
We'll put it back up.
What city was that?
What's that?
What city was that?
I don't know. Doesn't matter. I want to tell you about the Falcons schedule really quickly.
Okay.
Really, not about what's coming up because it's pretty easy. Just rewind. They beat the Saints. They lost to the Falcons. They lost to Josh Dobbs making his first start. They gave up 4 touchdowns to Will Levis in his first start, but they beat Tampa Bay at home.
Yeah, they lost to the Vikings with Josh Dobbs, right? Okay.
I have no idea how this division is going to shake out.
All right, let's go back to 17 through 24. I can't look at these guys anymore. Yeah, that's all right. You're really falling asleep at the wheel here.
That's all right.
You know,
I'm only one man.
You are, I agree. So let's talk about the Raiders here at 20 because, by the way, again, Saints 24, Bengals 23. I've got the Bucks at 22, the Falcons at 21. By the way, I'm fresh out of NFC South teams. So if you're waiting for any more, we're done. I've got the Raiders ahead of all these teams. Now, I know the Raiders ended up giving up a ton of points to Kansas City. They have been competitive in every game with Antonio Pierce. There were some good signs from the offense. Listen, I'm not totally down on Aiden O'Connell, man. I see some real sparks from him that, okay, maybe he's going to be a good backup quarterback.
Sure. That's valuable.
But hey, he can play. Okay. He can play. He certainly belongs in the league. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
And he's a rookie, man. He's a rookie. Like, he's going to struggle. Josh Jacobs had a really big run in this game. That was awesome to watch, but their defense let him so down. From about mid-third quarter on, it was bad.
Yeah, they're really struggling on offense right now. They're averaging under 17 points a game, but Aiden O'Connell has shown enough to at least be excited about him as a high upside backup. So I think all in all, the Raiders have to be excited.
They are better with Aiden O'Connell than they were with a banged up Jimmy Garoppolo and with was it Bobby Hoyer?
40-year-old Brian
Hoyer. Brian Hoyer. I said Bobby Hoyer because there was a Bobby Hoying. I don't know if you remember Bobby Hoying. Minnesota Vikings at 19. Another bad start for Josh Dobbs, but this one was really bad. The Broncos game was not good. This was awful against the Bears. They're trending the wrong way quickly. I thought for sure they were a playoff team. Now I'm not so sure.
No, it feels a little bit like the Josh Dobbs run might be coming to an end. I mean, he threw 4 interceptions. And he easily could have had 6 in this game if the Bears just didn't outright drop passes. The offense really didn't move at all. You got to wonder if the Vikings aren't looking at maybe starting Nick Mullins ahead of him next week.
Maybe they give him one more start in terms of Josh Dobbs. 2 teams here at the front end of this listing: the Chargers at 18, the Packers at 17. These teams played a couple of weeks ago. The Chargers had a chance. They dropped a ball. Their first round pick dropped a ball down the sideline. They had a lot of drops in that game, actually. It's hard for me to put the Chargers lower than this. I know people are really down on them. They're 4-7, but Marcus, they have lost close games two, for the most part, really good teams. I have the Packers ahead of them, though, because the Packers are trending the right direction. And we've actually seen something from Jordan Love that we weren't seeing early in the year.
Yeah, I think the Packers have a really good chance of making the playoffs. I won't be surprised at all if they end up leapfrogging the Vikings and it's the Packers who are the number 7 seed in the NFC.
We'll see. I don't think the Chargers are making the playoffs, even in the very weak AFC. Let's
No.
go to 16 through 9 here. Getting to teams that really probably will be in the playoffs. And the most interesting one to me is right here off the top, number 16, the Indianapolis Colts. We talked about that Browns game. You've talked about the officiating a ton this year. To me, that was the most egregious. If you're looking for a game where a team should have won, the Colts should have beaten the Browns. That was about 4 or 5 weeks ago. But even still, the Colts are what, 6-5 right now? They are in
5, right in the
good
hunt.
position. They're playing as well as Seattle is, who I have at 15. I know you'd automatically think Seattle's clearly better, but Seattle's lost in consecutive weeks to division opponents. They got beat by the Rams, and then they got blown out by the 49ers. The Colts are in every game. I don't have any problem with these two being grouped together.
Really quickly on the Colts schedule, because they probably have to win 4 more games to make the playoffs. Here are their final 5 games. At the Titans, at the
Win
Bengals.
that.
Suddenly, that game
You can
doesn't
win
look so
that.
bad. At the Bengals, right?
Yep, that'd be 8-5.
Home against the Steelers, tougher game.
Yeah, I'll
At
give them a loss, 8-6.
at the Falcons,
Okay, I can definitely see them winning that. That's 9-6.
home against the Raiders,
They can win that too. That's 10-6. Which one did we miss?
home against the Texans to finish out the year.
All right, even if they lose that, that would be 10-7. Let's say they drop the road game to the Falcons. That's still 9-8. They still have a shot for that 7
Absolutely.
seed.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's crazy. Like I said, Seattle got blown out. That was going back a ways. Thanksgiving night. There's not really much to talk about there. Geno Smith's going to have to play a lot better. Who knows how banged up that tricep is? The team that beat him, that injured his tricep, were the Los Angeles Rams. All of a sudden, they are in this deal. They blew out the Cardinals. So I talked about that game with the Cardinals. Matt Stafford looked really good. I tell you what, though, is it Kyron Williams? My gosh.
Kyron Williams, yeah.
Another big game. He came back. He was great earlier in the year when they played the Cardinals in LA, and then he got banged up. I'm trying to think, gosh, how many guys did they play in place of him? Did they play Henderson? The Rams ran. Yeah.
Zach Evans was in there for a game. I mean,
that's right.
Bunch of
just one guy after the other. And now with Kyron Williams, who had I want to say 180 something yards from scrimmage in that game and some touchdowns. Cleveland Browns at 13. Don't really know what to do with these guys, Marcus. I mean, they were not good against the Broncos. They're not getting anything from the quarterback position. But when they play in Cleveland, their defense is as good as any in the league. No exaggeration. You play Cleveland in Cleveland, they're going to give you a great game defensively. Do these guys make the playoffs?
No.
You don't think so? They're 7-4.
I know. The problem is we've got Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who's now dealing with a concussion. Myles Garrett has a shoulder injury. Denzel Ward didn't play with a shoulder injury. Sounds like Joe Flacco is going to play next week for the Browns. And I know a lot of people are excited, but I also watched Joe Flacco last year play with the Jets, and that was pretty awful. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is the team that kind of falls out of the AFC playoff picture in favor, of the two teams that you have ahead of them.
Yeah, so let's get to those two teams. I've got the Broncos 12, the Steelers 11. I'm going to go ahead and rope the Bills in here at 10 because I think these teams are all on a par. So the Broncos proved me wrong a little bit in the sense that I thought a lot of this was smoke and mirrors. They played a good game against Cleveland, but we need to tap the brake a little bit. Russell Wilson was 13 of 22, and he averaged 6 yards an attempt. But because his passer rating is really good because he's thrown no interceptions, they only had 125 net yards passing.
Yep.
They talked about him running. He had 11 rushes for 34 yards. It's not like he was, your favorite player of all time out there. I don't know. Is Michael Vick or Dion your favorite? I always forget. I get screwed up.
It's probably Vic.
Yeah, and then Ebenezer Ekubon.
But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, of course, for that half season. But, in my mind, the Broncos still need to do more offensively. I will tell you this. I don't think Sean Payton would make some of the mistakes that Sean McDermott made coaching-wise in the Bills-Eagles game. I have the Bills at 10 over Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh and the Broncos are almost the same teams. They've been struggling on offense. They get opportunistic plays on defense. You can argue the Broncos are better at quarterback, but to me, the Steelers' defense is clearly better than the Broncos. And to me, When your offense is struggling, the team that has the best defense is easily the best. That's why I put Pittsburgh over Denver. With Buffalo at 10, I have them over both teams because I feel like they really should have beaten the Eagles. They played a really good football game. There were some very fluky things that happened in that game, starting with the officiating. This was one of the most poorly officiated games of the season. And they also blew out the Jets the week before. This is not a team that's currently playing bad. I just don't know if they, and I know I'm doing a lot of talking here, so I'll shut up in a second. But I just don't know if they have the personnel that's healthy on defense right now, Marcus, to make sure they get a playoff spot.
No, and they're probably not. They have games coming up against the Cowboys. They've got a game against the Chiefs, a game against the Chargers. Like, it's going to be really hard for this team to make it with the playoffs, considering they already have 6 losses. Like, they probably can afford only one more loss. It's a shame because I'm not sure there's a team in the AFC that's better than Buffalo. But the record says that Buffalo's not going to make the playoffs, and they probably aren't. But if the Bills snuck in as a 7 seed, could I see them winning 3 straight road games? Absolutely.
Yeah, and I know the Broncos got that miracle win against them. 7 times out of 10, I think Buffalo beats these teams. That's really where I'm coming from. But I recognize the Broncos and Steelers have a much better chance of making the playoffs than the Bills do. But these aren't standings. This is how I see the strength of the teams. Houston Texans, by the way, at 9, really tough loss to Jacksonville. There was a horse collar that could have been called on C.J. Stroud. I think he was in the pocket. That's why they didn't call it late in that game. And then they missed a 58-yard field goal when it literally doinked off the crossbar to tie the game. Houston certainly acquitted themselves well. Let's go to top 8 here real quick. Okay, so I've got Houston still behind Detroit. And I don't know that that's even true anymore, to be honest, because, as good a season as Jared Goff was having, the last 2 weeks, he's just turned the ball over too much. Mm-hmm. And if he doesn't turn the ball over, Detroit has a good chance in these games, but they're not good enough to afford that right now.
No, and you see some of the flaws with this Lions team. Their defense is awful. Like, you can move the ball in this defense. And then if Jared Goff has to improvise or if he has to create outside of the structure, things can go a little haywire. They're still a very good team, but I think they're pretty clearly behind the top 3 teams in the NFC.
I don't, look, I'm going to go old school here. This is one team that I think needs to take a page out of a 1986 playbook or even a Shanahan playbook. Get 2 tight ends in there. You've got really good running backs in Detroit. Agreed? Really good backs. Sure. Use them. Run them. Play power football. I put the Lions offensive line easily in the top 10 in the NFL. Go impose your will a little bit and let Jared Goff make plays off of play action. I think that's how they win from here on out. Jacksonville at 7, I have them a little higher than Detroit. I think Jacksonville has been playing, for the most part, pretty good football. They got a big win against Houston. We just talked about that game. I'm curious, though, will the Jags be able to leapfrog the Dolphins, who I have at 6, and the Ravens, who I have at 5? How do you see those 3 teams?
Very similar. I mean, they're just week to week. I don't know if you can trust any of them, but they all have some really strong strengths. I think for Jacksonville, they've got a lot of weapons on offense. Miami can score points, and Baltimore's defense is outstanding. But they can lose to any team, and they can beat any team. It's just kind of where we're at right now with these 3.
Who had the most impressive win this weekend of the 3?
Jacksonville.
Jacksonville. I agree with that. The Ravens, like I said, right now I have the highest. By the way, I love that they have some really strong strengths. That's one of your best quotes ever. They have strengths.
There are teams that have
good
strengths, but they're the strongest, right? Like, is anybody going to match Miami's speed in the NFL?
No, but I mean, I think to use Lindy's, it's time to bolster some other areas of your team.
I think let's go. You got to fortify those strengths.
Yeah, we do. Got Kansas City in the cleanup spot, and you'll notice you were probably surprised when I gave you my list. I dropped them. I know they won. I know the offense rebounded. You think, why would you drop the Chiefs on a week that their offense rebounded? Because their defense couldn't keep it up. And if their defense cannot keep up the effort that it has all season, and I'll be honest, I've been shocked at how well they've played, given the personnel that they have. I'm not saying they have bad personnel. I think they've played over their heads a little bit. I think that's fair. Okay. And in my mind, the Cowboys have been so consistent now for 5 weeks. And I think the 49ers are better than Dallas. I didn't mind leapfrogging San Francisco and Dallas over Kansas City. So I've got Casey in the cleanup spot at 4, Dallas at 3, San Fran at 2. How do you look at these three teams as we stand here today?
I think, by the way, I agree with your rankings 1 through 4 here. But I think the gap between 3 and 4 has started to widen a little bit for me. It just feels like Kansas City can really only win one style of game right now, and it's just totally the opposite of what we're used to seeing. Like, they have to win these defensive struggle types of games against good teams because they can't win a shootout right now. I think the 3 teams that you have ahead of the Chiefs can all win games in different ways. The Cowboys, 49ers, and Eagles can all win low scoring games. They need to score 35 points. They can do that. And I think it's why the 3 best teams in the league are all in the NFC right now.
Yeah, so quickly on those, Dallas can win with their special teams. Their kicker's having a great year. They've made some big plays there. They can obviously win with their defense, and their quarterback's playing really well. The only thing Dallas has really struggled with season long is running the ball effectively and consistently.
Yeah.
And if they can turn that on, look out. And I'm not saying Dallas needs to become a power running team. It'd be nice, though, if Tony Pollard could really showcase his skills even more. I think they've got to get more creative with some of the play calling in that department. The 49ers, absolutely dominant against Seattle. I mean, they, other than this kind of tip ball pick six that happened early in the second half, they look really good right now, Marcus. I think they can beat anybody, including the Eagles. Let's talk Philly. They're my number 1 team still, but I hate saying they got bailed out. I know it was a really poorly officiated game because let's say the Bills get those calls. You still got to stop Philadelphia when it matters. And it seems like nobody can stop Philadelphia when you have to be able to stop them. And I think a lot of it is a testament to those wideouts.
I agree. I mean, Philly's a really, really good team. It's weird though, because this is not a standings rankings, right? We've made that clear. But I don't want to spoil our next show on Thursday, our spread. But it's very interesting who is favored in Philadelphia this week, because it seems like the sports books don't believe that the Eagles really are the best team in the NFL.
Well, I think that, there's an old boxing adage, styles make fights. And we've seen that the 49er style with the Cowboys, for example, has been really hard for the Cowboys to match up with. And so I don't necessarily, I have to have some tip of the cap to season long play.
Sure.
I can't just be week to week all the time. And Philadelphia has proven if you go way back to week 1, remember New England game where they could have easily lost that game, but they didn't. They make the plays when they have to. I think you got to look at the quarterback here. I hate to be so simplistic, but he's a huge reason why that's happening.
At some point, though, you'd like to see them like dominate a team, right? And blow them out. The 49ers did that. I mean, they crushed Seattle from the moment that game started. Philly really hasn't been able to do that. They've kind of let every other team just kind of hang around.
Yeah, I mean, really, when I think of like super impressive performances I've seen this year, the first one that comes to mind is San Francisco at Jacksonville about a week and a half ago.
Oh,
you're playing
Dallas.
A good team.
How about the Cowboy game?
Right. I was so impressed by the Jacksonville game because they'd had a run of bad games. They're on the road. They're a West Coast team playing on the East Coast. That was an early window game. And it was never really competitive, So maybe the Niners are the best team in the league, but right now I'm still giving the tip of the cap to the Eagles. And maybe Jalen Hurts did move himself into the front position for MVP this week. That's still highly debatable, but those are my thoughts. Again, Detroit at 8, Jacksonville at 7, Miami at 6, Baltimore at 5, Kansas City at 4, the Dallas Cowboys at 3, San Francisco at 2, Philly at 1. Again, the Cowboys at 3 and Niners at 2. Leapfrog the Chiefs this week. That's kind of the headliner there. Your final thoughts, sir?
I'm just shocked that we don't have a overwhelming favorite in the AFC yet. There's like 5 teams that still could be the number 1 seed after week 12. It feels very much like this is going to be one of the weirder AFC playoff seedings that we've ever seen. It won't shock me, Elliot, if we get a really random team in the Super Bowl this year from that conference.
I totally agree. And this week's games are absolutely huge for the playoff standings, playoff seeding. So we will talk about that on Wednesday. For now, that's it for us. You can cover Marcus's work further on the Cowboys with Landon McCool on the Locked On Network, Locked On Cowboys. He's got a Dynasty podcast on that. He covers the Raiders for USA Today, Raiders Wire, and of course, writes for the 33rd team. He is at Marcus_Mosher, and we will see you guys all tomorrow. Take care, everybody.